Let's begin. So, Prana, Tattvas, and Pranayama. So tonight, we're talking about the Prana and its various modifications. So, let's begin. Prana is the energy that exists within everything. Prana is the force that departs from the Absolute. We look at our little Kabbalah over there. The Absolute being the tiny white circle at the top, but also being not heaven, that's the wrong word, but the Absolute, as we said, it's the source of everything. It's where we come from. It's where our being comes from, where our own interior God comes from. So, okay. So, at the beginning of creation, Prana comes out of the Absolute. Yeah? So, I guess I forgot to put that in our little picture. I'm going to put it here for you guys. So, Prana comes from the Absolute abstract space. Absolute. Okay. So the prana, therefore, is referred to often as the breath of life. It's the energy of It's the energy of all creation. It's the same thing as the solar logos, the cosmic Christos. It is the building block of everything. Yeah. A lot of people sort of just think that prana is just like sort of. I think people sort of they confuse it just with like the concept of like chi, just the energy of the body, which is, I think, chi. Is it Chinese? Yeah, Chinese, yeah. Chi is like the energy of the body, or ki, I think, is the Japanese version. The same thing, you know. But that's the prana inside the body, which actually is different. You know, it's still prana. It's just the prana that's reached into the system. It's actually the prana that's all the way down here, not the prana that departs from the Absolute. So it's the same thing. It's the force. It's the life in creation. Heat, force, magnetism, electricity, everything. This is prana. Yeah. And when we go back into the cosmic night, what we call the Mahapralaya, which we talked about in the 7 Round 7 Races talk, everything, all of the prana sort of exits from creation and goes back into the Absolute. And what's left is just the seeds or husks of all creation sort of stays there. But the life. So, you imagine, like, when you have, like, if you've ever seen, like, an animal or something that's died, you know, there's that moment where it goes from being alive, it has heat, it has life within it, and then it moves to not having life inside of it. You know, it's interesting. I don't know, have you guys ever seen those, you know, like AI nowadays can do everything. It can do everything, right? But, you know, there's, like, the AI videos are getting better. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're getting better. And I saw one a few days ago, and someone was showing to me, and it was like the AI can talk, but I still notice the AI is still struggling to get the eyes. It can't quite. The eyes still look dead. Do you know what I mean? Like, a person who's alive, you see it in the eyes. I often say the eyes are the window to the soul. That's the prana. That's the energetic force that exists within the person. And when that's extinguished, yeah, when the prana departs from that body, it's dead. You know, so it's life. Yeah, it's life, it's heat. Yeah, the body is warm when it has the fire of it. It's the same force that's constantly coming from the sun as well, obviously in a different densification or variation. So prana the whole of the life, heat, force, everything that is a modification of the great force of life is prana. Yeah, that's why, to be technical, prana is the cosmic Christ. It's the same thing. It is the life and the light of all creation. And all variants of heat, light, and fire come originally from the one prana that comes out of the Absolute. Yeah, the prana actually goes through. We talked about the 7 cosmos, comes from the sun. The sun is connected to the Absolute anyway. So, in that sense, this is the original, the first force that enters into creation. And what I want to talk about tonight is the process of that prana and its great journey where it actually enters into creation and its densifications, and even unto the point of even entering into us, and how it then perpetuates itself again. Yeah, I've mentioned this before when we're talking about the solar man, when we're talking about the force, the 2 creative principles in all of creation is the sun and the seed. Always that way. There are no other creative principles. Yeah, there's, like, scientists try to create, but they just take the seed and then modify it. That's really what they do. They don't create a seed. They just take it out. Like the stem cell research is a great example. They take a pre-fecundated seed out of a animal or out of a human being that has already gone through the process of creation, that came from here, has gone all the way down to sexual force, and then they muck with it, usually to very ill effects. Very rarely are they able to do it correctly. And so that's not creation. Creation is that force. So the creative power is the sun. The sun has amazing creative power. Yeah, it has inspired everyone forever on this earth. It has this amazing force. And then through this process, it enters into all living things, eventually depositing itself within the creative glands of each living creature, each animal, each everything in creation. And then becoming the seed that then creates again. So there is a relationship between the sun, the force of the prana, entering into creation, and then the sexual fluids that man and woman have, the egg and the sperm. So, okay, so we mentioned the first part. The first part, as you said, is the prana. Now, prana densifies down and becomes what's called Akash. So as prana comes through creation, it becomes the Akash. And the Akash is a tattva. I'll tell you what that means in a minute. But the Akash is actually the sound or the great geometry of the universe. So first, if here we have the great energy, the power, the great life of the universe, and then that densifies down and becomes sound. This is quite an interesting point. I believe, is it, I think Pythagoras said that God geometrizes? I can't pronounce that. You remember that? The Masons used to say it too. And if you see the Masonic symbol is like it's like a craftsman measure, you know what I mean? Like that. They're holding it used to measure things. What's the word for that again? It's the bottom one's a set square they use, but then the top one is I forget what that's called. A compass? A compass. Yeah, a measuring compass. You know what I mean? Like that. Like that. With a little pointy bit there and then the pencil on the other side, and they use it for measuring angles and things like that. And the symbol that's used by the Masons is actually like that. So it's a square at the bottom and a measuring compass at the top, which has two symbolisms. Okay, of course, here we're talking about what we hear is that God measures, yeah? Everything is measured. God geometrizes, everything is mathematical. The whole of creation moves in accordance with sacred geometry and sacred mathematics. The sacred geometry is the Akash. Yeah, the Akash is the sound, the formation of everything. Everything is formed by sound. We talked about that a few lectures ago in the universal sound. Everything here, everything has a sound. Yeah, and even you hear, there's all these like amazing studies that get done all the time that just don't come out or no one cares about. About people with amazing sort of telepathic abilities, people who are completely blind and yet they can like hear things in the room. They can hear objects that are completely still and they seem to be able to, you know what I mean? They can see even though they're blind, etc., etc. A lot of this has to do with the sound. So everything has a sound. Everything in and of itself is composed of sound. We pretty much get taught that at school anyway. When we were growing up, they talk about the fact that everything's made of molecules made of atoms, and that all those things are just constantly moving. Everything. Something that's solid is moving less than something that is liquid, and something that is gas is moving more. Again, there's just more space in between the molecules, yeah? And so, again, everything is in a constant state of vibration, which means it's a constant state of sound. This is where all these amazing stories of, the Tibetans with their amazing abilities, with their mantric language, and you hear the stories, old stories of, from the late 1800s, early 1900s, of people going to Tibet when there was still Tibet, because there's no Tibet. It's just China. They just took it. But when there was still Tibet, they would go there and people would see amazing things. They would see people, young lamas, just with the power of the word, moving whole mountains around, shifting, using the power of the word in order to move their bodies through time and space. All of this is because the foundation upon which rests all matter, remembering, of course, that, energy and matter are kind of the same thing anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things, like, what did someone say to me once? What's energy? No matter. What's oh no, don't worry about it. That doesn't make sense. What's matter? Never mind, don't worry about it. That's mind and matter. I got that confused. I might have to edit that one out because it's not funny. But really, matter and energy, they're the same thing. Do you know what I mean? What's the difference between energy and matter? We really don't know. So science has their own little definitions, but it's that one thing. The second you set something on fire, you liberate the energy within it. You know, everything is energetic. Everything is energetic. And this is because everything is just a modification of prana. Yeah? Yeah. In the coming weeks, we'll go into what the six-pointed star means too, because that's very interesting, because that's alchemical. Has to do with the masculine and feminine. It's an alchemical sign. We'll explain that in next month. So, anyway, so the Akash densifies down, becomes ether. Now, this is a little more in our wheelhouse. Ether is the energy that sustains everything. If you remember, when we talked about the lunar influence, and we were talking about the moon and the earth. The etheric body, because each of us have an etheric body, like I have an etheric body, you have an etheric body, different to our astral body. The etheric body is what sustains the physical body, yeah? And it exists just that little bit out from it. Same thing, the etheric atmosphere of the world, of our physical world, encompasses the moon. We talked about that before. The moon's actually part of the etheric body. That's why the moon has such a strong influence upon the physical world with its tides, etc., upon the world, the earth. So this here, now, when scientists for years and years and years were talking about ether, we're talking about scientific terms and facts, etc. They used the word ether all the time. It was actually quite normal. In fact, I read a book it was about the human circulatory system by Emerson. I was studying it because I was just interested. I found it in a bookshop. And he uses the term ether. You know what I mean? Like Isaac Newton, who talked about gravity, uses the term ether. In fact, because they didn't come up with the term, well, they didn't disprove ether until I think it was the 50s or even 70s or something. And what they did is they said there's no such thing as ether. What there is magnetic fields. So they said each body actually has a magnetic field. Even everything has a magnetic field around it, everything. Some magnetic fields are stronger, some are weaker. And that has to do with the exchange of atoms around them, protons, etc., electrons. I don't know it so well. But everything the world has a strong magnetic field, yeah? That magnetic field encompasses the moon, yeah? So what happened is we stopped using the word ether and we just started using the word magnetic field. But it's the same thing. There's no difference, yeah? In Gnosis, we use the word vital world or vital body. Everybody has a vital body. All of the energy of your physical body is contained within your vital body. And when you die, the vital body will be there for a little bit and then eventually it'll dissipate, yeah? So all the force and energy of the physical body, because the ether will eventually go down, is contained within the vital body. That's why we can get sick sometimes if we don't look after the vital body. All these sorts of radiations and stuff that can damage the vital body. Do you know what I mean? Like microwaves. That's a good example, you know what I mean? Yeah, your microwave food just doesn't taste the same. Do you know what? There's something wrong with it. After you microwave, you're like, yeah, I mean, it's okay, but... Because, I mean, I don't want to say it, but, my grandma, she was a big advocate of microwaves because she grew up in the 50s and 60s. And, she literally did everything. In fact, one Christmas, because she's very competitive, she's an Aries. She was super competitive. And she was competing with my mum for best pavlova. And my mum made, this beautiful, pavlova on a pavlova plate. And then she said, oh, you can make one in the microwave. And I was like, oh, please. But, so she started making this thing in the microwave and it was just a giant sweaty marshmallow. But imagine, right, a marshmallow, but it's sweaty. It's sweaty. Think about that. Just think about the texture in your mouth. It was so upsetting, But, she died of bone cancer, and I have to be honest with you, she used those things literally. She used it every single, if she had a glass of water, she had a cup of tea, she would put the tea with the water, with the tea bag in there, in the microwave to heat it up. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, you put the tea bag in so that it breaks the water surface so you don't blow your face up when you take it out. But you know what I mean? She used it a lot, But yeah, it takes something from it. It's the same thing. If you leave food on the grave, You know, people do that, leave food in the graves, you know, for the dead. The deceased personalities actually eat the vital aspect of that food. It doesn't have the same level of nutrients and sustenance that it has. And that's why, you know, eating that won't actually, it will help you a little bit, but it's not going to feed your vital body. So we have to be careful of our vital body. We can deplete our vital body, you know. Not having enough sunshine, it's not just about vitamin D. It also works on your vital body because it's got prana. And I'm going to talk about it soon. Tattvas, which is a densification of that, etheric force, yeah. So a person can be like that. A person can be just a weedy sort of person, but they have a strong vital body. You feel it. A person's got a lot of energy. They're very strong in the vital essence, very healthy, you know what I mean? Same thing, a person can be a big, strong, fantastic guy, but his vital body's very weak. He's quite sick all the time. So a person with a weak vital body gets sick a lot. Do you know what I mean? And this is one of those sort of holistic approaches where we have to start to understand that we're more than just a physical body. We have a vital body, astral, mental, causal. But the vital, very much so, etheric, has a lot to do with the health of the physical because it comes from there, or it densifies down. So all of that, Reiki and healing with hands and magnetic passes, all of that is working in the etheric. Yeah, that's working etherically. So the person's using their vital body to work on your vital body, and hoping that healing the vital aspect of your glands will help to heal the working with their vital body, on your vital body of your glands will help to heal the internal aspect physically. You understand what I mean? And so what that has to do with, and we're going to get to that, is because the network, like for instance, in the physical body, we have a network of nerves that run all over the body, sympathetic nervous system. But in the vital body, we have what's called nadis, which are these tiny little filaments that go all over our body, everywhere. And it's actually the nadis that form the chakras in the vital body. And so it's actually the nadis, when they come together, when they form, because the nadis actually, they go all over the body, yeah? But they like the nervous system, they sort of follow the bone structure. They come off the spine mostly, from the brain down the spine, and then from there they go out. And where they congregate or bunch up the most is where we have a plexus. So for instance, a space like a plexus on the body like this, you know, like the hands, there is a strong plexus. So many nadis bunch up and they form what looks like a flower when you look at it, because they're all bunched up going in all different directions, and they look like kind of like a vortex or a flower in the body. And that's why we have the strongest 7, of course, being in the here, and across the body, the ones we know about. But there's way more than that. Yeah, there's way more chakras in the body, in the palms, in the knees, in the feet. Anywhere where there's a plexus, I didn't draw that on there. Anywhere where there's a physical plexus on the body, there's going to be a gathering of nadis in the vital body that can then that will form a chakra. So we have more than just the main 7 chakras. There's many, many chakras.
So,
yeah.
So they're like solar panels?
That's right.
They're literally photovoltaic, magnetic, etheric receptors. So they process all 3 different...
That's right. They take into them prana, and as we're about to talk about now, they take in the tattvas.
Okay, they take...
Yeah.
Okay, right.
So what they do, what the ether densifies down, and it becomes the tattva. So what happens here is tattva is a vibration of ether. Yeah. So ether, as it starts to densify, as it starts to come down and energetically sort of crystallize into the physical world, before it reaches the physical world, it starts to vibrate in one of these 4 tattvas. Yeah. And these 4, technically it's 5. The Akash is actually the vibrational tattva of ether, which is kind of complicated, but it's the sort of the super tattva or the highest tattva.
But it's 7 is like one of them as well.
There's another 2, Adi and Samadhi, which are the 2 tattvas, which I'll talk about at the end. Actually, I'll write that down so I don't forget to talk about them. Adi and Samadhi. You can close that if you want to, don't worry. So the Adi and the Samadhi tattva, we'll talk about them later. So yeah, technically there are 7, but the main ones, so the tattvas that pertain to the 4 elements here, so ether as it's coming down, before ether becomes air, because ether is the energetic building block of all physical matter. Yeah, everything comes down. Yeah, crystallizes down. Sorry, and so ether, before it becomes air, there is the ether vibrating in a gaseous state. Yeah, so ether that is becoming air is called vayu. Ether that vibrates in an igneous state, like fire, hot, is tehas. Ether that vibrates in a like a liquid, yeah, I forget the term now for that. Liqueous, I don't think that's the right word. I can't remember, but that's apas, yeah. And then the earth in a petrious state, when ether's starting to become solid like that. In other words, ether as it is vibrating like a solid, as something as a fire, as a liquid, and as a solid, as a gas, as a liquid, and then as energy. There is a vibration of ether before we get those things. Yeah, and so we actually have, and these are known as the four tattvas, as talked about in Hindu. Yeah, the four tattvas are the energetic etheric aspect of the elements. So ether as fire, ether as air, ether as water, and ether as, or it's better to say ether before air, fire, water, and earth, and then they become those things afterwards. Yeah, and so once they become those things, then those actually form the four building blocks of all creation. Like if you've ever seen, there's those those Bhagavad Gitas that just get thrown around everywhere they're like the Mahayana school ones. So they're like Mahayana, that's Buddhism, sorry. But they're like the major school ones. They've got that guy, and I forget his name, and they're like all over Byron when I was first coming here 15 years ago. Like, cause there's all the hurries, and what I'm talking about? The little dictionary. In the middle, there's a whole bunch of cool pictures of like an old man, and then it kind of goes around, shows them going back into the womb, but one of the pictures is like a man running through space, but like his body's just made up of the four elements, like that. And what it's showing you is that before the ether makes it to physical, dense world, yeah, it actually becomes, the whole world is made up of the four elements, yeah? Because the whole world is made up of gas, energy, liquids, and solid forms. Yeah? So the whole world is made up of the four elements. I'm not talking about just fire, air, earth, and water, like as in actual fire, air, earth, and water. Those are four elements as we know them. But everything is composed of four states of matter. And the four states of matter are gas, energy, yeah? Gas, energy, liquid, and solids. Do you know what I mean? So everything is composed of four elements. You understand what I'm saying? And so before they become those four states of matter, they are four vibrations of ether. And so these are the four vibrations of ether. So when you're in a place that's full of the air blowing everywhere, you will feel the tattva vayu very strongly in that element around you. Yeah, it's not just the physical element; you also feel the power of vayu. Yeah, the ether is vibrating very strongly as vayu. When you're in a place like, for instance, tehas, like you guys ever seen that movie Falling Down with Michael Douglas? It's a classic. It's so dark, but it's hilarious. It's just about a guy, and he's just in his car. He's in like a traffic jam, and it's really hot, and everyone's like beeping, "Move your dick out!" And he just cracks. He just opens the car door and just starts walking, and he just goes on this spree. Like he goes to buy a Coca-Cola, and the guy overcharges him, so he smashes the whole place to pieces with a baseball bat, and then it just keeps going. Then there's a road work; it's in the way. He ends up shooting it with a bazooka. It's the most ridiculous movie. But it's how a lot of people feel when the tehas is strong. It's like a hot summer's day. You're in Brisbane traffic up near the airport. You're picking up your friend who's visiting, and it's just, have you ever been on the motorway when it just stops? Sometimes there's a crash that's so bad that it just stops. Like it's happened to us once. We were on the way to Brisbane. We were going to go to Fortitude Valley and have a beef pho because I love beef pho. Maybe I'm a reincarnated Vietnamese guy. Who knows? But yeah, I remember. So we went 5 hours early, and we only just got there on time because the motorway stopped. It just stopped like that, and it was hot, man. You could feel the heat on the road, and people were so angry. Everyone was going. "Rah." I remember, and it was really bad. A truck had like flipped, and it was stopped on both sides because the truck like flipped over and just it was like a big truck, and it was a big problem. The guy fell asleep behind the wheel and just destroyed like both sides of the road, and it took them hours to clear it up. But I remember actually walking. I remember saying to Dad just got out, and we started walking down there, and I was like, Dad, we should go walk on the other side. Like, how many opportunities are you going to have to walk the wrong way up the M1? So we're just like walking along, like this. And people like started just getting out, chatting, thinking, what's going on? Don't know. And that's like it. Google Maps wasn't really very functional back then, so no one knew what it was going on. But yeah, so... But the tehassin, the heat, the people, a lot of people were just sitting there. Some people were just beeping. It's like, why? Why beep? Who cares? Why do you have to be mad? Yeah, what's the point? Yeah, there's just no point, right? And so, but you feel that the hot, everyone, the heat, the same thing up us. It's the cold and the moist, but it's the moisture, but with the cold. Do you know what I mean? Prithvi's more cold but dry. Because they also talk about these as these have been described in the Western as what's called the four humours. Yeah? They talk about the four humours because they also enter the body. See, these tattvas, these etheric vibrations, actually are what enter into our chakras, yeah? As we go around, yeah, as we live, this is us, right? I know that's pretty obvious. It's a person with a face, yeah? And within us, we have these chakras. The nadis I talked to you about, this is sort of a zoom in of one of these here. So here's our spine. That's our spine there. And then that's let's say our belly. Off of our spine are running all these nadis, actually lots of them. But there's one very powerful one here, a chakra, yeah, as a specific bunch of or bunch of nadis that go, and they actually pass through the glands of internal secretion, which is very interesting because the glands are something that aren't really very well understood in modern science. They sort of know what they do, but they don't have no idea how. I actually talked to an endocrinologist about that once. I taught him, I was his child's kindergarten teacher, and we were talking to him once, and he's spent 20 years studying endocrinology. And we asked him once, so how do they, and he just laughed, he goes, we don't know anything. He said, we have no idea how they work. It's like, we sort of know what they do, but we don't really know why. It's very complicated. There's lots of papers about people guessing, but they really don't know. So what happens is these nadis, yeah, actually penetrates from the spine, and the place on the spine from where the nadi actually departs is often referred to as the church, the 7 churches in Revelations, yeah, the church. And it passes through the gland of internal secretion and then reaches the plexus. So let's say that's our belly, there's the spine, there's our back there. And then where that plexus is, it fans out, forming like a funnel. And into the center of that, it takes the tattva. It takes, I wrote prana here, but it's probably more, it is prana because it's the same thing. But to be more correct, let's write here, it's a vibration of ether. What we're taking in really are the tattvas. Tattvas are still prana, it's just a densification of prana. A modification of prana, sorry. So basically, these actually enter into our chakras constantly, yeah? And it goes even further. These enter into our chakras, and then from in there, they become hormones and various genes and various things. They enter into the blood, but they actually become things inside the body. They actually go in and eventually they even make it into and becoming our sexual fluid in the end. Through the genes and hormones, they become our sexual fluids as well. And so they're like a food. They are transformed through the gland and through the chakra and actually enter into the body. So we are constantly taking all of this energy, all this etheric energy from our outside world. And you see that. That's why, you see the person who's just staying inside playing World of Warcraft all day, he looks just like he's got no energy. He's exhausted. He's not taking on any of these tattvas from around him. He's living in this really sort of, mostly it's sort of this, like you're living in just an air-conditioned apartment. You're pretty much just getting cold, dry sort of air all the time, which we know is very bad for you. In large amounts, depends on what sort of sickness or what sort of temperament you have as well. And so all of this is entering into the body and it's all coming through these chakras into us. So we are actually very, very, very much affected by the etheric environment. And we see this, yeah? On the hot day, as you said, this tattva is very strong. It's entering into the person, and we see ourselves taking a lot of this Tattvas vibration into us, and we are easily irritated because we're taking this sort of fire impression into the body very strongly. We start to overheat, and if you actually stop and really slow yourself down, like with breathing and taking control of the body, you can sort of stop this. You can sort of slow the process down. You can transform it as it's coming in. But no one does that. They just sit there and go, ah, 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 ah. You know? Like we're in the elevator at the airport, and this person was, because the elevator went the wrong way. And, what's going on? Did someone press the button? Why didn't someone press the button? Just relax, man. But you can see, the person was all hot and flustered. It was a hot day. So the Tattvas tattva very strongly. So they all have their pros and cons too. Like, for instance, the Vayu, which is very airy, is actually very good for the mind, for the intellect, sorry. It's very good, like if you're trying to do like intellectual studies, for instance, you should have a well-ventilated space. There should be air moving through, because the power of Vayu is very good for these chakras here that work with the brain and with the mind and actually help the intellect and clear it up. That's why I thought it was quite interesting when I went to the Adelaide University. I was doing some lectures there, Gnostic lectures. Not for the actual university. I was just renting a room. Yeah. But I remember I was doing it, and I was putting up some posters to try and get people interested. And I thought, I'll find the philosophy department, And the philosophy department was in the second level basement. And I remember thinking to myself, really? Like, you're talking about philosophy, right? Which is something that should be very like, you're using the mind, you're using logic and sort of levels of contrast, and you know what I mean? Like, if you read books on Socrates and stuff, but when you listen, if you've read books, for instance, like about Socrates and Plato, they used to sit in those like outdoor atriums. So when they were talking and conversing about philosophy, the people who literally invented the word philosophy, the love of wisdom, yes, love of wisdom, the people who created that word, used to sit in an open air forum, meaning they sat in a nice big stone area that was beautifully built, that was completely open to the elements almost, had like a little bit, they would have some sort of canvas on top to just stop them from the rain a little bit, but mostly they let a lot of the sun in, a lot of air flow, because they understood that actually Vayu is very good for the intellect, very good for the use of the intellect. If you're down in the philosophy department in the second level basement, what are you going to be thinking about? You're going to be thinking about old stale thoughts, and farts. Do you know what I mean? You fart in a basement, it never goes. It just stays there. You have to think about that. You're going to fart in the basement. You got to really think about that. That's never going to leave. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, you know what I mean? Sorry, that's Vayu. But Apas is the more watery, the more emotional thing, and you feel the Apas. Apas is actually quite good for meditation as well. Vayu can be as well, but like Apas is like on rainy days, that sort of cooler, the cooler but moist. You're sitting inside, you see the rain outside. And what do? You get a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or perhaps a hot chocolate with some, what's it called, some special mushroom powder or something, because it's Byron. And you sit on your nice little Balinese outdoor thing, because it's Byron, and you watch the rain and you think, man, what am I doing with my life? Obviously the right thing. And you think, you but it's that emotional, introspective. You feel it in the water, the air, the water element is very strong, and it helps to organize the emotions. You're having a hard time with your wife. Go walk by the beach. Yeah, let the force of the water actually push into you. You know what I mean, and help move the emotional center. Put activity into your emotional chakras through the emotional tattva, and actually work with that element. You know what I mean? This used to be very common for people back in the day. People just sort of got this. Nowadays, everyone goes, I'm feeling really bad. I'm going to sit on my phone and watch like TikTok reels. And it's like, my friend, you have no idea what you're doing. Go to the water. You know what I mean? And enjoy, if you have a problem. If it's more the mind's going crazy, then just walk by the stones, let the wind blow off you on, Brunswick, we out by the rocks there. Walk, let the air just blow all those thoughts out of your head. just like like that. Sorry.
No, just relate so well. I've got a spot, a waterfall spot. It's one of the only places like if I'm in emotion, just go there within minutes. It's just straight on the waterfall.
Before I had kids, one of my favourite spots to hang out was the big rock jutting out at Burleigh Heads on the large headland. It's a huge rock, and I'd sit right on the end. And if you sit properly, you can't see the headland anymore. So it's just open, like, because your eyes, what is it? You can see like just over 180 degrees with your eyes, right? I think, or just under. You see about this much, right? It's about 180. But if you sit just right out there, oh man, it's beautiful. It's just like endless ocean, and it's like you're just sitting on this little rock on the endless ocean like that. And when there's no clouds, it's the same. The lighthouse is wonderful. It's such a beautiful impression for the senses. And up there, again, you this really strong, the Vayu, you've got the Apas very strong there. Same thing. So when you're working with Tattvas, of course, you can feel it. Okay, we have it on the hot days. The sauna. Sauna's good for a little bit of Tattvas. Sit in there, get the heat in you, let it heal up the body. Same thing, you get sick, take a lot of Tattvas in the body because it burns you out, clears you out. It depends on the sickness. Got to be careful. You have a sickness, it's a hot sickness, it's going to make you worse, But generally speaking, most sicknesses are usually like watery, the body, and the Tattvas is really good for curing the sickness. So the sauna is good. The obviously with the fire, out really in the hot, dry places in the sun. Like I remember when we went out to the pinnacles and things are really beautiful like that. Well, you feel that element, but you feel the element of the fire element around you. Obviously, working with physical fire is a lot of Tattvas with the physical fire is around. Prithvi, so yeah, very healing. As I said, there has a lot of power. The Prithvi element is the earth element. Again, so the Prithvi is very good for solidity and stillness. You understand what I mean? The Prithvi element, for instance, you can feel it when you go sit amongst the stones. Like if you ever go and sit, like what I was saying, same in the Burleigh Headland, there's some areas where there's just rocks. You're just sitting. In fact, you can go under. There's like caves. You go into the caves and there's like a stillness. It completely cuts out all of the magnetism of the other elements, and all you can feel is just the rocks. And like when you go for those nice caves, not those idiots who go like cave diving and those videos, Brad. Yeah. Just people getting stuck in nutty putty and stuff like that, horrible videos. But you know what I mean, all that sort of stuff, right? When you actually go to these places, again, there's this silence, this solidity, that can be worked with. In a sense, each element has its own power for meditation, of course, you know what I mean? But really, really has that beautiful solidifying element, which is just sit and let there be silence and work, really beautiful, the strength of those stones. My father had that. I remember he used to go, I went a couple of times with him when he was living in Burleigh Heads, when I very first started this mission back in Lemuria. It was like 2012. We started the group here in Byron Bay. I remember I used to go visit my dad in Burleigh Heads, and yeah, he would go out to that rock, and under the rock there was a cave. And if you go deep, you could sort of go around. You could go right down, and you get to a point where there's no cell phone reception, and you sit and you can hear your heart beating. It's so quiet, you can't hear anything. And you just feel around you the power of these huge boulders, you know what I mean? It's not like you're not worried anything's going to fall on you because they're just completely solid, But it's like you just feel this like just perfect stillness. It's different to the Vayu. It's like in the Vayu, it's complete movement, a complete stillness, that beautiful stillness, But not like the negative one. I'm not talking about, I was talking about the basement of the bloody philosophy department. That's like a dead stillness. You know what I mean? A dead stillness with fake air conditioning, fake air, It doesn't have this, it doesn't have the power of this Tattvas. It's just dead air, So yeah, as I said, all of these enter into us, and so we can work with those chakras. We can work with these Tattvas in order to help with various psychological situations, working on ourselves, but also just in general, to be a little bit aware of it. You know what I mean? Everybody nowadays is so... forgive my way of talking, but everyone's so consciously asleep, The consciousness sleeps profoundly in all humanity. And they don't just sort of stop. Like, was it, we had the instructors course here yesterday, and Hamish, he's not here today, but Hamish was giving a talk, and he was talking about one of his friends who's local, used to live in the industrial, and he said his friend's like, old, chilled out, Mr. Cool Guy, but then he was in the car one day, and a guy cut him off, like just up near the roundabout, and he said he just followed him. He just followed the guy all the way down the M1, beeping and swerving, and then finally they like got out of the car and were like punching each other in the face. Yeah, I can tell you right away, it would have been a hot day. Do you know what I mean? Like, if it's raining, you're just not going to do that. You ever notice that? Road rage in the rain is just so much less, even though people drive 10 times more dangerously in the rain. Like, when you're driving in the rain. Yeah, and you're in Queensland, and you just get those guys just going past in those like all black cars with black windows, black. They black out the lights as well, so you can't see the lights. And it's like it's raining, and it's like bucketing down. You're thinking, oh man, I'll just go 80. I don't really want it. And some guy just goes past you 160, just like that, and go, geez, he's gonna die. And that's it. That's like as far as you go. You're like, whoa, he's gonna die. Doesn't want to be him. On a hot day, he does that. You're like, I'm going after him. And I'm imagining his death in my mind, slow and painful. How could he have cut me off? Why would he do that? He's obviously a terrible person, But in the rain, it's like it's over. He goes past, and then this is the next thing. You're busy, That's what I'm trying to say. It's just completely different. I just think it's pretty interesting that no one ever notices that. You know what I mean? So there's all this sort of force, all this strength to become aware of these within our life, to become aware of these vibrations. We can work with them too, but mostly just to be aware of how they affect us in just such a simple way. Same thing with the kids, You know what I mean? It's a hot day, the kids are all spun out. Well, just let it go, man. There's no point telling them all of the off to the edge of the world, because what's the point? Yeah, just take them out of the situation, give them a glass of water, settle them down. Yeah, so a knowledge of the Tattvas helps in eliminating a really large amount of just general personality and egotistical problems quite quickly. Just simple stuff. I'm not talking about working deeply on the ego here. I'm just talking about just being able to deal with life in a simple way without totally losing the plot. Yeah, but this huge part, yeah. Same thing, you create yourself a study space, and then it's in the basement or something, and then keep it in the open, Then you'll have these nice things come to you, You don't create. It's funny. I've actually seen that. Like some of these guys who write these really horrible graphic novels full of pain and misery, and then you see their writing space, and it's just this dark room with no windows. And of course, you write about everyone dying and suffering and in misery and pain, because look at where you are. Like where's the fresh vibration of ether flowing through? Where's the energy clearing them up? It's not there. So I guess to sort of round it off, it's a simple talk tonight, is that really, for us to know that really this great pranic force, this energy, remembering the word logos means word. Again, if we're talking about sound, remembering, logos is the word, is the power, is the prana itself densifies down, but it is still the great sound of everything. This prana is everything. This force is everything, and so it starts here in the absolute. It comes all the way down and makes it into our sexual center, our creative center. And so we can work with that creative force, We can actually work with that. One's in the alchemy. So when we use the wise use of sexual magic, which is the transmutation of the sexual libido in order to create the Kundalini fire, quite simply just the sexual act restraining from the orgasm. That's one way, which we're going to go into deeply in about a month. We've got the classes coming up. But the other thing we can do is we can also practice it as a single person or married, doesn't matter. We can practice pranayama. So pranayama means the control of prana. It's working with that prana in the body. And as I said, that prana inside the body, it's inside our sexual fluids. Okay, yes, it's within here as well. It's not just there, it's everywhere. It's in our hormones, in our genes. It's literally all through the body. The whole body has its own prana, which we've been taking in this whole time. And the body was made out of prana originally as well, out of that life force, that strength. But so the word pranayama, yeah, actually means the control of prana. Yama means control. And so what we're doing is we're learning to control that prana and work that prana inside the body. And so we can prana is one of those tricky words because in the original Sanskrit, the word prana is also synonymous with breath. Yeah, their word for breath is also the same word for, the universal life and energy and force. But really, I hope I've sort of illustrated that anyway. So using some breathing exercises, we can actually control the prana inside the body and also the prana that we're getting from outside, from the air that we're extracting from these various tattvas, these etheric vibrations. And then we can begin to transmute and work with this sort of sacred force that we've been given, this sort of internal high quality prana that we have, this sexual fluids that we have. And so there's two practices I'm going to give us that we can do. We'll do them tonight in the class. The first is what's called Egyptian pranayama. And also it's it's exactly the same as the Hindu pranayama, like this, which is using the nostrils. And what we're doing is we're breathing the sexual energy up from within the ovaries or the testicles for men, and we're breathing it up the spine, up to the brain, like that, and then we're then moving it back down into the heart, like that. Yeah? And there's two. So I'll write, actually, the first one I write is the practice of Hamsa, which is quite simple, which is we're breathing in Ham, and we're moving that sexual energy up from the sexual center, from the Svadhisthana chakra, from the testicles in the man, the ovaries of the woman. And internally, we use the mantra Ham, Ham, and then pause, and then we release it back down to the heart, like that. And from the heart, it then goes back into the body again. But what we're actually doing is we're actually raising the level of this. Most people just lose this. That's what they do all day. I'm not talking about just generally physically with, all this sort of stuff, fornication, masturbation, etc. But even just through the centers. The senses. So all day, on the phone, we're just losing energy constantly. We've got all this amazing power inside of us. Like the human body is, the human vehicle, not just the body, the whole vehicle is absolutely profound. The amount that we can do is immense. And yet we're just losing this constantly. Yeah? Just impression after impression. And every impression, as we learned a few lectures ago, demands a reaction. Everything I take demands a reaction. And so then I'm just losing energy through constant mechanical reaction, just constantly. Yeah. And lose everything. Everyone says to me, if someone says something, and you just blah, blah, blah. Even just mentally. You may not even be saying anything. You're just walking along thinking, this is stupid. What's that guy doing? What's going on there? What's happening there? You go walking through the shopping center. That's interesting. Oh, that's fun. That's a nice looking bag. Oh, that's dumb. Why do they do that? I hate this music. What's going on? That guy's fat. I'm kind of fat, actually. He's fatter. I'd never let myself get that fat. But what if I did? Oh, I'm so depressed. And it's just like, you just sort of go through this nonsense, this constant, and you're just losing all this creative force and power within yourself. You just lose it. And every day you're tired.
I did some self-observation practice after I was really impacted by the impressions talk.
Yeah, it's a good talk.
So I did an experiment. Progressively, I find that I'm not, I just don't have time, number one, but I no longer feel that going and scrolling my phone, looking at social media it doesn't provide any relief for me. So there was a time where it's like, I need to chill out. So what I called chilling out would be sit down with my phone and scroll it and look around and stuff. So what I did in the last 2 weeks was I tried to recall, I did a couple bit of scrolling here and there. I wanted to test. And I forced myself to see if I could recall individual impressions from fast phone scrolling.
Oh.
And it scared the shit out of me. My brain was able to pull back into its frontal visual understanding micro snippets of horrific stuff and other things that it had caught.
They're sitting in the subconscious,
Things that moved that I didn't stop on.
Yeah.
So just the action as it's flying up, there was enough registration of it to implant it in the back of my mind. And so when I sat down and deliberately tried to to test the theory of impressions.
Mm.
Not only could I feel them and see things, I was like, whoa, I actually straight away felt the energetic field of those and a complete drop. Like a depletion in my... It was like a cause and effect.
That's intense.
Reaction.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but it was like interesting to see how quick it's just like bang. So maybe we're taking in thousands.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. But they're just going into the subconscious.
Yeah.
And then they actually later on affect you, but you don't even realize. One of the things that always amazes me is like the children, like their memories are just so good. Do you know what I mean? Like they remember things so much better than we do. But what I realized, the difference is just level of consciousness. We actually have this. We do have I'm not going to say that we have the same level of memory. It's not right, but we are taking just as many impressions. But they just go straight to the cerebellum. They go straight to the subconscious, and they just go, and then they just sit there. And then later on, you're meditating, and it's interesting when people say often when they meditate, they go, "Oh, my mind goes more crazy for a while," and I'm like, "That's because that's what's going on in your subconscious all the time. You're just not aware of it, and your subconscious just goes, and it's just all this crap." That's why those things are so dangerous, because there's so much insidious stuff in there, you know what I mean?
But I thought it'd be the things that I remember being impressed by.
But it wasn't. It was all the other stuff. Oh, it's so subconscious.
It was
It's like turning the song, making it backwards, you know? You hear Satan speaking. Yeah. That's fantastic. The beginning, the understandings of Gnosis, huh? Okay, so Hamsa, we're controlling the prana. So we're controlling the flow of prana in the body. We're actually moving the sexual substance up, yeah? What we're trying to do, is we're actually trying to change the direction of our sexual energy, like the flow of our sexual energies. So remembering when I say sexual energy, I mean creative energies, our creative power, yeah? So our sexual energy usually is going out all the time, yeah? And by that, I don't mean, as I said, I'm not just referring to actually losing the sexual energy physically, like in a sexual act. I'm talking about just generally speaking, we have that way about us. Yeah, when I'm using the phone, everything I'm doing is pouring out. Yeah, all my energy is always going down and out. You know, you start the day, you've got, like, usually you start all right. Yep, as long as you've got like a fairly good night routine, good routine to go into bed, you wake up fairly refreshed. You wake up, oh yeah, and then, you know, immediately you start, that energy just starts going out. You know what I mean? It's like first impression of the day, pick up the phone, check the phone. Oh yeah, okay. Next impression of the day, eating your food, nom 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 nom. You know, and these sensations. You make yourself a really nice acai bowl or something. You know what I mean? Something perfect like that, and you're really strong feeling. And then the next thing, you know, that's why the phone's so dangerous, because it'll give you scroll up and it's straight away it's like horrible things. That happened to me today. Brad's like, "How was your day?" I was like, "Horrible." It's because I spent the day trying to do computer work. Ended up reactivating my Facebook to look at something, and then like that, horrible impressions, things I wouldn't say in front of the children about stars on the OnlyFans side thing. And I was just like, that's just an impression I didn't want. I didn't want that impression. I didn't want to know. I don't want to know that. And it made me feel really upset. And it was very, very hard to sort of get that out of the mind. And yeah, just really nasty impression. And then the other stuff, it's beautiful, Richard's saying, and then the other stuff that I scrolled past that was still going in, you know. And so, anyway, but like that, in general, everyone lives in a completely sort of losing their energy fashion. The whole idea of life is just to have good sensations. Like, that's life. Good food, you know what I mean? Fast times, yeah. Go out to the field there, jump out of a plane, bungee jumping, you know? Enjoy the super fast car, or maybe not the fast car, maybe the nice smooth car, you know? Or the four-wheel drive, you know? Bump, 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 bump. You know, we drove it to see our friend out the back of Mullum, and it's like that. You know, and everyone's like, oh, yeah. And everyone's like, yeah, we're going on an adventure. In the four-wheel drive, you know? And it's a good sensation at the end of it. How was your week? Great, mate, great. You know, we did this, and we did that, and we did this, and we did that, and we did that. Did you sit down in silent reflection? What? No, you know, we don't know. The way life is, everybody nowadays is just constantly going from one sensation to the next, and then you die. That's literally expenditure, beginning to end. You have a certain amount of energy, and you spend a lot, and then you die. End of story, right? It was a good life. But that's not really going to work if you're looking at the Gnostic esoteric path. So your energy is going down and out. Yeah, it's always flowing out. Yeah, not just in the sexual act of fornication, but just in general, everywhere. What we're trying to teach here is the opposite. What we call a centripetal force. We want our energies to be coming in and up. So we're actually taking the prana in like that, and we're actually transmuting up. And that's what this practice does. So I'm moving my sexual energies up the spine and down the heart. And by retaining the air, I'm actually taking more prana from the environment as well. In through the lungs, through the various chakras, I take more prana in. There's chakras in the lungs too. And then, so inhale, hold, and then the heart. You can do some muscle pull, etc. if you want. It's entirely up to you. You can visualize the energy moving up. Depends on what you want to do, yeah? But feel, really, we just want to be focusing on that movement of that energy, feeling that energy. And as you do it for a while, you'll start to feel that flow, that energy start to flow. And it's going to give you a lot of force, a lot of power in the body. You'll feel it immediately. You do Hamsa for 10 minutes in the morning, you're going to have so much force the rest of the day, so much strength, yeah? At the moment, we start every day at 5 a.m., we get up, we do our meditation for the first hour and a half, 2 hours. And actually, Samael says that the other two Tattvas that we didn't mention, which is Adi and Samadhi Tattva, are actually are active just before dawn. Yeah, and I can attest to that. My own what do you call it? My own experience, experience of Gnosis. That having done this for the last, I think it's been 5-6 weeks now, since just before Easter. I feel it. I feel there's this profound power at that moment in the morning. When you're meditating in complete, there's a special silence, in that time, 5 o'clock, 4:30, and just before dawn. And you know how you can tell dawn? Because we do in a completely dark room where I'm meditating. It's completely dark, yeah? Just a little tiny little candle inside a little thing. And but what you can hear is the birds. When it's dawn because they tell you. It's like it's a symphony, a cacophony. In the morning, it's just crazy. You hear first you hear tweet, 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 then one kookaburra, and then suddenly it's just just everyone, just the whole place is rumbling for 5 minutes, and then they would shut up and go and off out their way. You know what I mean? But it's just amazing. You can hear that. But just before that, I can always feel this great profound force, yeah? And someone else says, the superior tattvas, yeah? Which is the tattvas, I think what they talk. One of them's a tattva of light, I know that. I think the other one's tattva of consciousness. Sorry? Akash is the sound tattva. It's the next one up. It's above that. I think Samadhi's ecstasy, I know it means the same thing, and the Adi, I think, is light. I think it's I'm pretty sure it's tattva of ecstasy and light, I can't remember. But the superior tattvas, which are the tattvas of prana, they are active in that time. That's why you find that early morning practice is very, very powerful practice. Very, very good. Yeah, it can be hard to do because we're tired and, the body complains. I'm tired, I'm sick, I don't want to do it. Well, but very, very good. So, but anyway, so Hamsa is about moving. It's about creating a centripetal force. And centripetal means going in and up, moving energy. So energies are coming in and up. We're not losing our energies to the world, not constantly in sensation, not constantly in reaction all the time. Yeah, reacting to the problem with this person, the drama. I had a little drama today. I lost a lot of energy. It took me a while to get it back. I was feeling very dramatic. After I got from the beach, I was full of drama. I was like, oh, poor me. And I had all these dramas, and I just couldn't get my head together. It was the drama of getting Brad a birthday present at the last second. We had the whole day, but we waited until 4 o'clock. The shops are shutting at 4. And I completely lost it for a second. Yeah.
Today?
Yeah, today. Yeah. He's only 25.
I can tell.
That's crazy. But but there was a little bit of a drama. I let myself fall to drama for a moment, and before you know it, the senses were losing it. We got to get here. What are we going? We got to get this. We got to do that. No, we got to go to the meat place. No, we're not getting a book. And we're going through this whole thing. But I let my energies get lost. I felt it when I got home. I was tired. I was exhausted. It took a long time to clear the mind out properly and stop just losing myself. And you feel like that. You feel tired afterwards. You've lost so much energy. What a waste of your time. So, and you go to bed. How are you supposed to astral travel like that, man? You're supposed to astral travel. You spend your whole day full of drama, pain, and misery, and you're like, I'm going to go to the astral. No, you're not. You're exhausted. Yeah? The guys who go to the astral, they've got amazing, amazing capacity. These beautiful lamas and stuff. Okay, so the other one is the Samael calls it Egyptian Pranayama. And we're working with these mantras. Ton, Sa, Ham, and Ton, Ra, Ham. And this is used, so this is taught, Shivananda teaches this in his fantastic book, Kundalini Yoga. And it's taught in some Hindu schools as well. But what Samael says originally comes from ancient Egypt. But what we're doing is we're still doing the same thing. We're still breathing from the sexual organs up to the brain. They're moving the creative energy. And what we're doing is we're actually moving the metallic soul. So we're not moving the physical liquids up. That would be crazy. But what we're moving is actually the etheric part of that energy. Yeah? We're moving the etheric part. So we're actually transforming. That's why we use the word transmute. So the term in Gnosis for working with our sexual force is called transmuting. In the couple, it's much more powerful. Yeah, if done in the sexual act, we transmute our sexual energy because we have the masculine and the feminine joined. We can then actually transmute, meaning we can turn the substance to an energy and then the energy back into a substance again. So go from matter to energy to matter, which can only be done in one other thing: a nuclear reactor. A nuclear reactor is the only physical object in the entire of creation that can turn one matter into energy and then turn energy back into matter. But 1, 2, 3. And that's called transmutation. It takes uranium, it turns it into heats it to an extreme point, and then out comes plutonium, a different substance. So I'm turning one thing into another thing through the mutation of matter. Transmutation. Yeah? But we can do that in the alchemy. So it can be done in the couple. We can take the sexual fluid and we can transform that into an energy, and then from the energy it can turn back into the internal bodies, the astral body, the mental body, the causal body. It can fabricate the soul. We can create the kundalini, awaken the kundalini, and then also it can actually start to regenerate the physical brain cells. And I will use this again, testament from me. I will testify. And I've seen this happen to many, many, many people. I have seen many people fix their drug damage with the alchemy. I don't mean straight up. I've had guys come to me who are the image of paranoia. I've had guys come to my class who have got serious paranoia, smoking marijuana since they were like 10, and they've got massive paranoia. Do you know what it's called? Do you guys know about this? It's called the Truman Show delusion. The Truman Show delusion is when you think that the entire world is recording you. Like you think that you're on a TV show and the whole world's just recording you. Technically, it's called mythomania. But it's a problem. It's a common problem smoking marijuana. You smoke marijuana and then you sort of start to think like everyone's watching me. And like, I got to be careful. Like I can't just like sit in this chair because like maybe they're watching me sit in this chair. And you go to the toilet and you're like, and then you don't want to go to the toilet because they're watching you. And like... It's crazy, but I know 3 guys who were coming to my class. They said, no, we all had that same problem. He said one guy got so bad sometimes that he would lock himself in his bedroom and he wouldn't go to school or anything, you know what I mean? And he'd just sit there like at the window, like just smoking his little pipe, like staring out the window and watching watching conspiracy theories about the world. You know what I mean? And surrounded by crystals. He had little crystals all around his bed, like that. He had his crystals, and he'd lie in bed with his crystals all around his bed, and he'd close all the windows, and he'd check everywhere for cameras. He got really bad, really, really bad. And his friend would have to come and bail him out occasionally. His father would call up and say, he'd be like, mate, can you come around and see him? And he's like, what's wrong? I haven't seen him at school for like 2 weeks. Hey, what's going on? And he'd say, he's just a bit off it again. Can you just go and talk to him? And he'd walk in and he'd just be sitting there like in the room in the darkness on the computer watching us. He'd turn around and be like, they're poisoning our water, man. You know what I mean? And they're watching me, And they do it. And anyway, and he'd take him out and they'd go skating and he'd forget. Anyway, I probably didn't tell you that deep about that. But anyway, That guy, after practicing the alchemy, all gone. And he was so difficult as one of my students because he literally, he would sometimes, like, he'd be normally, because, like, you know, like when you do that, when you're smoking, you have the bad paranoia, right? But then when you give up smoking, you still have a little bit of it. Just sometimes you just get weird about strange things. And he was like that. I remember he would be in my class and I would say something and he'd be like, he's talking to me. And then he would get weird with me. And he'd get funny, like after class, he'd be like, like that? Like, was there? And he's like, why were you talking to me? And I'm like, I'm not talking to you. I'm just giving you a lecture. As you were talking about my life, I said, it's a coincidence. And he's like, nah, man. What have you got against me? And I'm like, oh, come on. And he used to do it to me all the time. We'd be fine, and then suddenly he'd just get paranoid. And it was just, after 2 months practicing the alchemy, fixed. Just gone. He was a different man after 2 months. So the alchemy can regenerate the brain cells. It actually fixes like that, Everyone's trying to fix it right now with special little micro toad venoms or whatever. But I tell you, nah. You can't, you're not going to fix it with that. You're going to fix it with the alchemy. Because you can turn this, your sexual fluids, can regenerate your brain. Yeah? That's why you see these guys. There's guys teaching, a guy teaching Gnosis in Perth, Raphael Arape, marvelous instructor. He's got hundreds of people come from all over the world to hear what he has to say about the spiritual things because he's regenerated his brain. And he's there. Everyone listens to him because he's so sharp. He speaks English better than any English person I've ever met, even though he's from Venezuela. He's regenerated his brain. His brain's clear. He can speak beautifully. He understands. His teachings are so profound. And he's like 74, 75. There's guys, in their 20s coming from all over the world just to listen to him. They're so interested in what he has to say. Because he's still practicing the alchemy. He still has a sexually active relationship well into his 70s. Completely. With his wife at the same age. So that's the alchemy, which we'll talk about in about a month. So, but we can't regenerate the brain, but we can begin to move this. We can still move this energy. We can start to create a different flow inside the body, and I can start to turn this physical fluid into an energy within the body, which can be really powerful inside of us. Yeah. So there's the Hamsa, and there's the Ton Sahem Ton Rahem. And so Ton Sahem Ton Rahem is done like this. You cover one nostril, like this. It's in Samael's book, the Yellow Book, which I have right here. There we go. It's in that one, Samael's Yellow Book. He describes how to give this practice.
Oh, it's called the Yellow Book.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It's called the Yellow Book, and it's yellow. I know you're laughing, right? But our society released the Yellow Book as well. Like this is from Glorian, right? And it's green.
Wow.
And I remember it's black. It's a black book with a green cover. But then it says the Yellow Book, right? No. You would think if it's the Yellow Book, you make it yellow, no?
Yeah.
But it turns out...
Like you have the red book.
No. I understand they're going to change it, right? But no, they had this idea that they would, when you put all the books on the shelf, because they're all numbered in accordance with when Samael wrote them, that it would like form the rainbow. But the problem was the Yellow Book was where it was green. And I was like, I don't know, I think it's too intellectual. You should just make it yellow. So then I can say, you want the Yellow Book? Look, it's yellow. Anyway, I should probably cut that out. That's going to get me in trouble. So anyway, what was I talking about? Yeah. So, as I said, these teachings, you find them in Samael's Yellow Book. Really beautiful. Very much worth. This has got a lot of practices in it. It's very. He wrote it very early on, like the 1950s, because he passed in 1978. And so some of the stuff there is a little bit wrong. He does say you can awaken the Kundalini singly, which later on he realized was wrong. But this is all about awakening the Kundalini and doing practices to transmute the sexual energy. Very good book. Anyway, so Ton Raham Saham. So you start by covering one nostril, like that. Doesn't matter which one, like that. And we breathe in. And as we breathe in, we imagine the energy passing up. I haven't got much space to draw it on the board. You know the caduceus of Mercury?
Got the snacks there.
Oh, yeah. Excellent. Good call. So this is essentially our spine is like that. And then there's sort of three main nadis in the body. You've got the main nadi through the middle is called the Sushumna, or the Brahma nadi, which is the where the Kundalini awakens and rises up. But that's closed in like all humanity. Yeah, that's why they're so miserable. And then you've got these two here that go around the sides of it, and one's called Ida, the other one's called Pingala. And when we breathe, doing the transmutation, we're trying to move the energy up through this side. So starting with one of them, if you imagine, because you've got the little tails there, one of them is in the left nostril, is connected to the right testicle or ovary in the woman, and then the right is connected to the opposing side. Yeah, and also that's reversed in masculine and feminine. I can't remember which one. I can't remember. It's
right.
It's written in here. I can't remember.
So you start on the left if you're a man, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm heavily dyslexic. A lot of people don't know that because I can talk quickly.
I have a friend who
But-
part of his Tibetan practice had to do this for doing it for like 10 hours at a stretch. And if
10 hours?
They were non-stop doing it the whole day.
Take
and if
it
they
easy.
started on the wrong one, like they were reprimanded.
Oh my
and
God.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I can't remember. I just thought it was right was masculine, so therefore you had to start on the left.
I think that's right. I always forget because rights and lefts are not my strong suit. So you start on one side, but in masculine and feminine, it's reversed. Samael, in one book, he wrote it like that in a yellow book, but in a later book, he said it doesn't matter. Just start whichever one. He said, don't worry about it. Just start. Just do it. So, but they're reversed like that. That's why when you join sexually, it matches up because you're a mirror of each other. So they connect really nicely. That's why you see in all those old alchemical pictures, the man and woman with like one set of legs, but then their bodies sort of come out like that. It's a sexual teaching. Anyway, so just with ourselves here, we breathe in through one nostril and we're breathing the energy up like that, and internally ton. So these are internal mantras. You don't say them out loud. So ton, hold, sa, and then down to the heart, ham. And then back in from this nostril, opposite sexual organ, testy or ovary. Ton. Ra. Then back to the heart, ham. And that's one cycle. Then you would do it again. So ton, sa, ham, ton, ra, ham. You should do a minimum of 7 cycles. There's an extra practice sometimes where after you do that, you then do the Egyptian one very specifically. After you do 7 cycles, you put your palms together like that, and then do the mantra Ra like that, and then imagine the Kundalini fire awakening is to help awaken that thing. You can do that if you want to, but you can just do that. It's good. Like you're on the train or something, got some time. Don't pull your phone out. Do some transmutation. Sit there. It's good. Also, I've noticed. I'll give you a hint because I've watched people doing this online. Ready? Here's the hint from a person who has a deviated septum. Yeah, I'm going to give you a hint. Yeah, because I often didn't do these because I don't have very good. If I get even a little bit of snot, that's it. I'm plugged up. So this one was always hard for me because one of my nostrils was always done. And my father is very staunch on the fact that you're supposed to keep the timing. So for instance, let's say you breathe in 5 here. You hold 5, you go out 5. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's supposed to be 20. And if you try it, it's like impossible. And if you have like a blocked nose, it just doesn't work. So yeah, anyway, I did a lot more hamsa growing up because it's just easier. But anyway, so tonsai ham. But just do that, work with it. But what I see a lot of them doing is they do this. So they grab their nose like that. Yeah? Now, it says hold the air on your nose. So this is how you do it. You put your fingers under your nostrils, but don't squish them. Yeah? And you plug your nostril up just by putting your finger on the bottom of your nostril. See? Like that, so that the air can't move. But you keep pressure. So you're not holding your breath at all. Your fingers are holding your breath. So you breathe in, hold, and you're trying to breathe out. And then you breathe in, hold, and you're trying to breathe out. Within like 2 rounds, your nose will be completely clear and you'll feel fantastic. Trust me. Another one, if you want to do, I can actually throw some buteyko. This is not Gnosis. This is buteyko. Yeah. If you want to know buteyko, if you do get a blocked nose very easily, then you need to quit dairy and gluten. No, I'm just kidding. That was just me. That's a joke. That's a joke. Eat what you want. I don't care. But this is a little technique you can use for blocking your nose too, which is you breathe in and then ride out. Then actually hold your nose and go like that, blowing out. Every time. It works so well. It just unblocked my ear. That's been blocked all day. It was blocked all yesterday too. Ruby kept coming to talk to me, like, other ear. I can't hear.
I want to see the YouTube stats on that section of the video.
When everybody looking at
Just need a couple of keywords.
I don't know anything about these
Go
things.
viral over nose breathing.
Yeah. I still haven't quite figured out hashtags yet.
Yeah.
As I'm just a simple pleb, if you understand. Man, that worked really well. My ear feels beautiful.
Your dad was quite shocked.
That was
after
so
last
uncomfortable.
session as well.
Pardon?
Your dad was shocked when I spoke to him after the last session.
Really?
Yeah, I told him that you were monetizing and making passive income.
Oh, yeah. I don't think it's possible. I've never seen anyone. The only person who's making money off Gnosis is Astral Doorway. That guy's raking it in. But if you just talk about man, if you just talk about Astral all the time, of course you're going to rake it in. You know, all my videos, if you look at the most watched bits, it's whenever I mention anything about the Astral. Straight up, every single time. Astral, it'll be like you watch it, it'll be like, 10% watch, 10% watch, 10% watch. And then like you mention a mantra for the Astral, it's 50%. It's like, what? The most replayed section is me telling you how to do the mantra from Farah on. I should do it. That's actually really funny. So this is the mantra for the Astral world.
It'll be in the algorithm, the keyword algorithms.
There you go. Do this mantra before you fall asleep. As you're falling asleep. Fa, ra, on. Take you to the Astral. One of my students once did it. He went out 5 times in a single night and he saw the sun rise in the Astral. Remember what I said about the sun? The sun's the cosmic Christ, yeah? Seeing the sunrise in the Astral is one of the most beautiful things you'll ever see. You think it's nice here at Byron? You think you got the phone out nice? Wait till you see it in the Astral. It's just like the euphoria because it's the Astral light. The Astral light is it's the Astral light that actually brings beauty to all things. Like Samael says that when the Astral light settles upon a woman, the man falls in love with that woman. Upon a man, the woman falls in love with that man. The Astral light is this pure, powerful, sort of force. It's amazing. And so when you see it in the Astral, wow, change your life. I've seen it. It's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. You know what I mean? But unfortunately, you come to Gnosis and then you find out that it's mostly about working on yourself. And you're like, oh, but I just want the Astral light every day. I'm like, well. Why don't you work on yourself, huh? Okay, you got questions?
Yeah, I wanted to see if like this Tattvas has to do as well with the temperaments.
Yes, exactly the same. You mean like the humors?
Yeah.
That's right. So you have, is it phlegmatic, sanguineous? Oh, no, sorry. Phlegmatic, bilious? Sanguine, bilious, or that's sometimes called something choleric. Sometimes. Yeah. Phlegmatic. No, sorry, melancholic. Phlegmatic. I think it goes that way. I always get confused between which one's phlegmatic and which one's melancholic. No. Sorry, phlegmatic, melancholic. That's right. The water, yeah. Yes. Yeah. Because the earth is melancholic because cold and... Yeah, I think technically melancholic is supposed to be the water in the body, but it's in here it's more to do with the earth. The way it functions, it's like the depressive. Whereas phlegmatic's the easygoing, But yeah, no, they're related. The 4 humor is something we don't understand very well because we only know it now as like a personality thing. It's kind of like how astrology has just become like a personality thing. But like back in the times, the ziggurats in Chaldea, like that was their mystery system. They literally used the understanding of the 12 signs of zodiac to awaken consciousness and to like meet the being and to understand the heavens and it was like a complete system. But we just have like, or like tarot cards. Tarot cards, people just use them to like, does he love me? I don't know, But in reality, they're the 22 cards of the Book of Awakening Consciousness. The whole esoteric paths in there. That's what I'm going to teach you guys next. Once we finish this, we do Egyptian tarot. 22 weeks. That's the plan. 22 weeks. Because it's 22 cards. This is them here. And we'll do tarot readings as well. I'll show you how to read tarot. I like reading tarot.
I was going to it seems like sometimes the most simple things in the Gnostic studies are the most powerful. This connection of the prana becoming kind of materialized in these 4 different elements, and plus the other 2 with the light and the consciousness. It's like a really, really, it's like a fundamental law, like a basic key. So like to expose yourself to the air, to resonate with the fire, to submerge yourself in the water, to connect yourself with the earth. Like it's ridiculously simple. Like I know, but incredibly powerful. In almost feels like it wouldn't really be possible to evolve yourself unless you had unless you were understanding what those energies were, so that your system, your nadis, which I gather are also connected to your consciousness.
To a degree, yeah.
To a degree, when you consciously connect with those elements, your nadis then have the ability to receive that energy far more potently because you're actually tuning into it. So, like you said, when you're stressed, instead of go for a scroll on your phone, go for a stroll in the air. When you're needing to replenish yourself and build up your heat, move your body, generate heat, or sit under an open fire under the stars.
That's right.
So that the body can actually transmute the energy, and like receive the energy, the prana most potently, which is kind of seems super fundamental, basic, but it's just not practiced that often.
It's because we're divorcing as a sort of a whole race now, the Aryan race, all of us. We're all sort of divorcing ourselves from just like reality, like nature.
That's what I mean.
Like we're so divorced from nature, like that. Everyone's living in sort of like a fake world, like living in the 1-bedroom apartment with the air conditioner. It's like you don't.
And what I'm getting at, is
quite simple.
Trying to check in is the nadis will be like a flower. If that flower is not exposed to regular water, sun, earth,
I understand what you mean.
It starts to close down. So its capacity and its ability to actually receive energy, and therefore the pranic field will be higher, just gets shut. Like that's what it feels like to me, because I'm thinking about the times when I do that, when I get up in the morning, do the Tibetan rites, when I feel the sun on my skin, when I go in cold water, when I put my feet on the earth, completely different. It's like the body actually can receive energy the whole day.
And the atoms, it's interesting because there's like a whole teaching in Gnosis about atomics, like about working with atoms, which is not really talked about till later on, but it was given us by the Master Moria. And he says that the ego, not all the ego, but part of the ego actually is atoms of indolence that exist within the body itself, like little atoms that move through it. And, indolence is just laziness, basically. It's more than that, but, And I really felt it today, when I sort of decided to try to do these computer things rather than just... I let the atoms of indolence take over, and they eventually almost ruined me. I had to go down the beach. And,